Hey everyone, I'm back with another House of the Dragon video. In this one, I'm going to be ranking the dragon scene in season 1 of the show. This is my own subjective take based on the design of the dragons and how they were used in the series. So let's jump right in with number 10. And that goes to the Black Dread himself, Balerion. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait until they do a series on Aegon's conquest to actually see Balerion. But I really liked how they presented his memorial and the great reverence that Viserys showed to him. I think part of that was due not just to the respect that the last rider of Balerion had for him, but it was also because of Viserys' fascination with Valyria, and Balerion was the last dragon to have been born there. At number 9 is Dreamfire. We only had a glimpse of her this season. She was the dragon that rejected Aemon down in the dragon pit after the kids had presented him with the pig they called the Pink Dread. She is now Helena's dragon. At number 8 is Seasmoke. We haven't seen a lot of him in the show either. He had a significant role in the battle at the Stepstones. It was Laenor who flew in on Seasmoke after Daemon's bold and reckless attempt to draw the crab feeder out. Laenor died in the books, and Seasmoke had a new rider. At some point, I'm going to do a separate video on what Laenor's fake death might mean for Seasmoke and the show. At number 7 is Vermithor. He didn't appear until the finale, and while we haven't been able to see his full design yet, the scene with Daemon singing to him was so well done that he earns this spot over Dreamfire and Seasmoke, whose scenes were not as significant for me. I'll link my video translating and breaking down the song Daemon sung to Vermithor below. Really looking forward to seeing him in season 2. At number 6 is Arrax. This is another dragon we did not see until the final episode. Unfortunately, it was a one and done. But I loved how they showed Arrax and Lucerys running to one another. And after watching the scene of him against Vhagar many times, probably too many times to be honest, I think that no matter how foolish it may seem at first glance to have such a young, small dragon challenge a beast like Vhagar, he actually felt he was doing his best to protect himself and Luke. Aemon took many passes at both Arrax and Lucerys. It's not like he just flew past them once and that triggered Arrax. Arrax interpreted the threat level as being so high for them, and he fed off of his own fears and Luke's that he took his one shot. And that shot was for Vhagar's face, in hopes of blinding him. I did a video on all of this too, which I'll put down below. And number 5 is Vermax. I really liked the bonding scene they showed in the Dragon Pit with the younger Jace and Vermax. This was my favorite part of episode 6, which I incidentally felt was the weakest episode of the season. But I liked how they managed to work this full scene in to show how younger dragons and younger riders are both trained and slowly brought together. They've done a great job, too, of giving all the dragons different personalities, and Vermax in the scene seems to be a bit rambunctious, and he feels like a perfect fit for the young Jace. Coming in at number 4 is Syrax. She is the very first dragon we saw in the series. And those scenes I felt were her best. Our initial images in the first episode are of Syrax flying through the clouds and down through King's Landing. It had such a fresh feel and was the perfect visuals to begin to remove the bad taste left over from the ending of Game of Thrones. It was as if the creators were saying, "Give us one more chance, we won't disappoint you this time." I love too how Syrax didn't want to go back into the dragon pit. Again, they were showing a personality in the dragon. One of the better scenes this season, too, is when Rhaenyra arrived on Syrax to reclaim the egg from Daemon. And I also like the flash they used of Syrax feeling the pain Rhaenyra had when she went into labor with a stillborn child. But I felt we should have seen more of Syrax. We never saw her with the adult Rhaenyra until the final episode. And Rhaenyra is central to the story. She's the queen. So I felt like they should have given us a little bit more. And number 3 is Meleys. She's designed extremely well, and while a lot of people had problems with the scene in the Dragon Pit, one thing you can't argue with is how well Meleys' part in all of that was. I liked how she broke through the floor with a "let's get the hell out of here" attitude. Also, you have such a close bond between Rhaenys and her dragon. You can tell Meleys wants to just burn them all, but Rhaenys, who is the picture of composure and moderation, is able to keep her under control, unlike another one-eyed dragon rider. The visuals here were perfect inside and then out as Meleys took flight to complete their escape. At number 2 is the great grandma of all dragons and the heavyweight champion of the world, Vhagar. Although she was not introduced until episode 6, we've spent more time with Vhagar than any other single dragon. We saw her in the more carefree days flying about Essos with Caraxes, and then her making the choice to put her rider, Lena, out of her misery. There was also the extremely well-constructed scene of Aemond bonding with Vhagar. Then, of course, we had Vhagar leaving at the end of episode 7 to join Team Green, along with the tragic chase in the clouds above Storm's End that ended in the deaths of Luke and Arrax. I've seen comments where a small but significant number of viewers feel that Vhagar should have been larger. But I think part of the problem is that Dan and Dave made Dany's dragons larger than they should have been in those final seasons. So while I can understand their disenchantment, Vhagar still worked for me. So we're finally at number 1, and it's Caraxes. I know a lot of people will probably have Vhagar as their number 1, but I just love the unique design of Caraxes. At first sight, it just told me that the showrunners were going to give us some intricate, well-constructed dragons in the series. And Caraxes went front and center in the early episodes to demonstrate this. He has this resting face that's a grin of sorts, which is both weirdly welcoming if he's on your side, but menacing if you're on the other side of him and Daemon. We had an early scene, too, of Daemon leaving King's Landing with Mysaria, and you could see how close the bond was between Caraxes and Daemon. During the fight in the Stepstones, Caraxes felt the pain of Daemon when he was hit with the arrow, and quickly got them out of there. The two probably have the closest connection of any rider and dragon on the show. It's otherworldly at times. Caraxes will just arrive when he feels Daemon needs him, like when Otto appeared at Dragonstone and it looked like things could turn to violence. Then in the finale, Caraxes showed up when Daemon wanted to ensure the allegiance of members of the Queen's Guard. And more than any other dragon in Fire and Blood, I feel as if Caraxes comes most alive from out of those pages and into the show. So that's my rankings. I'm interested in hearing where you would rate them. All of it's subjective. It'll be fun to do this again in a couple of years after we see Sunfire, Cannibal, Sheepstealer, and others, and also after more of the dragons that have been in this season get more screen time. I have a long list of videos I want to do in the weeks and months to come. There's a lot to talk about. So if you enjoyed this one, hit the like button. And if you're interested in more House of the Dragon content, listen to Caraxes and subscribe. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you soon.